Here's the other thing. When is it going to happen for us? That's the big question, isn't it? Because we know that we're very, very close, and I'll try to give you a little bit of more specific intel in a minute. But the way this thing is working is um, just when we think that we found all the pieces of the puzzle gets bigger. There's one more piece or two more pieces to the puzzle that we didn't even know existed. And oh, by the way, here's another puzzle piece. And now our puzzle expands as we try to fit that new puzzle piece in, where we only have a space for one or two or three more pieces. I mean, that's what that means. That's how close we are. So here's where we are in terms of how that's working. You know, we have Iraq at the heart of this thing. We have, for example, the liberation of Mosul. Let's start with that. Now, the true liberation of Mosul has been that way for at least 2.5 to 3 weeks. Okay, but just today I understand that they've put out a message to the effect that the liberation of Mosul has taken place in Iraq. Okay? I don't know if it was on Iraqi TV. I don't know if it was something that was in print. All I know is that we heard about it through an email. Now, we've known about the liberation of Mosul, but yet we haven't had it talked about in our media, not on the news. As far as most people know, and looking at the news, they're still fighting ISIS, and there's still a problem and all this. They sort of haven't discussed that for a while, to be fair, on the news, but it's because it's over. And what's happened more in Mosul is the replacement of electrical lines that they're burying underground, which is nice, and the addition of more fiber optics also in the ground, and the addition of satellite connection in the air, because that's how they're setting up all the homes. I mean, guys, they're dropping off 21-inch monitors every so many feet in the streets for people. They've got sort of Bluetooth type speakers set up every so many feet for audio. I mean, they are ready essentially in 6 different provinces in Iraq to do sort of a simulcast of the celebration and of the announcements that should air, or I'm not going to say, well, I can use the term air. They should be made sometime in the morning, Iraq time, tomorrow morning, Friday morning. Now, what time is that here? Well, let's go to the East Coast, where Sue and Bob live. Our understanding is we've got a 7-hour difference between East Coast and Baghdad. So if they're made somewhere around 7 in the morning, plus or minus, morning prayer is pretty early, somewhere around 6:15 in the morning, and they could be made after that. They could be made at 10 o'clock in Baghdad. We don't know exactly when. But whenever they're made, you know, it could be midnight tonight. It could be 2 in the morning, East Coast time. So whenever that occurs, that's a very positive thing for us. It doesn't necessarily trigger the quote-unquote RV, but it certainly gets it out that Iraq is back. They are sovereign. They have an international currency. They've already announced, I believe it was Tuesday. When was it announced? Did I say on Tuesday's show it was on Sunday? I believe it was Sunday that they announced that they are open and ready to do business in Iraq. They're opening up, saying, we are ready to do business with the world. We welcome the world to come to Iraq to do business. Now, to do that, even to make that announcement, you've got to be a sovereign nation. You've got to be have an internationally tradable currency. You have to be able to do business. And that's what they were indicating when they made that announcement. Now, was that the announcement? Not really, but it was an announcement that told the world, hey, Iraq is back. So that's what is positive. We've got to be discussed, I think, tomorrow in the way of announcements is additionally about the currency. Should be about the liberation of Mosul, so it's no longer a terrorist overrun area of Iraq. It's safe there, and we're thinking that there may be other announcements too that would come into play. Now, one thing that we heard yesterday, last night, I heard this, that there was an executive order signed by President Trump 2 days ago that was signed yesterday by Vice President Pence and also by Chief Justice Jeff Sessions. This executive order allowed for the repatriation of Iraqi dinar to Iraq that had been stolen, that had been, I want to say, pilfered, that had been illegally removed from the country. Thank you, Sue. Embezzled was the word. See, I just don't use that word very often. Thank you, Sue. Embezzled, and we know who's at the top of the list. Guys, the list of people that are involved in that is in the hundreds, almost over 1,000 of people now. This is all over the world, not just in 1 or 2 countries. This is in over 100 countries where this has occurred. Well, Iraq is going to get that dinar back, and the executive order was signed, and the repatriation is occurring. They are beginning to ship that currency back, and they're finding they know who the people are. Oh, they know who they all are, and they're going to be taking care of that in the next week or two, taking care of those arrests. Those people will be tried in Iraq, and that's something that's very positive. You know what? And it's a lot of money. It's a lot. I don't even want to put the amount out. I know what it is, but it's just a lot. Now, into the multiple trillions of dollars worth of dinar. Now, the other thing is, this also includes repatriation of U.S. dollars that were also stolen or embezzled or removed. I mean, it's a major deal. And this executive order that we just found out about last night needed to take place before the full value of the Iraqi dinar could be established, because these funds, and they know how much it is, they know how it's coming, would need to be reported to the Central Bank of Iraq so they could properly revalue the value, if you will, of the Iraqi dinar. So that's a very positive step. It needed to take place before we got this, essentially, even though there are plenty of people in Tier 3 that have been hydrated. I heard about 17 church groups that were paid yesterday, and they had access to their funds, and they were part of Tier 3. There are more aspects to Tier 3, and they should be, praise God, done tonight, if not tomorrow morning. They should be complete. I don't use the D word, do I? That's right. They should be complete. This is what we heard, and we're trying to get an idea, exactly how far along Tier 3s are, because Tier 4, and that's us, the internet group, of approximately 5 million, maybe more people than that, 5 million, are next. We're next. We're next to go. So that's a very positive thing. So where does that put us as far as the timing? I think what I've heard most recently this afternoon was the possibility of any time from late tonight all the way through lunchtime Sunday. That's what I'm hearing right now. Now, let's see, that's a pretty good sized window, but it's a window that we all can live with. So let's just see How that comes about, we know we don't try to call it. We don't try to do rates and dates, but we know that we are so close to the end that we should be getting that type of information. And the other thing I wanted to tell you about this is we understood, for example, Wells Fargo was selling Vietnamese dong at the low rates that it is now, and you didn't have to pay for it until Monday. But you could order it and then pay for it later instead of paying for it now. Well, that was a one-day deal yesterday, and that stopped today. Today, while a friend of mine was transacting something like this, all of a sudden across the screen was not available, NA, because no longer is Wells selling dong, and no longer are they selling Zim. You know, when somebody does that, when the banks do that, that's a good sign. That tells us change is coming, probably change in those rates coming, and they don't want to be caught with a rate change taking place where they would, lose money, of course. Some of the, one currency company in particular has sort of a fire sale on one of their Zim notes because they're no longer have any 50 T notes or 100 T notes, but they had some 10 T notes, and they're bundling those, letting those go at really good prices. But here's the thing. Why would a dealer do that? They do that because they want to get rid of as much of the currency as they can, because generally speaking, it's consigned to them, and they have to, what they don't sell, they have to send back, in this case, to the Central Bank of Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe. And so that's really cool. The fact that occurred today, guys, it's moving in the right direction for us. We do feel like we're right there. And I hate that expression. That's another expression that we can't use anymore after this blessing. We're right there. Here's another one. Let's see. Any moment now, any time now, any minute now, any day now, any moment, those are 4 more expressions we can't use after this, you guys. Oh, man. Wait till I see the first T-shirt. Don't do this. I'm just playing. The first T-shirt that comes out with like 40 different expressions that are no longer available, and with no mention, of course, of currency or dinar or anything like that on the shirt. But it'd be the funniest thing to be walking around all of a sudden, see a shirt like that, and just put a smile on your face, Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't make those shirts. No, don't do it. But it would be funny, wouldn't it? All right, so what about it? We're trying to figure out when Tier 3 is going to finish. If they're not done already, they may be. Everything's moving and shaking out west. People have access to a portion of their funds, generally when they're exchanging, when they're being transacted through these groups. But the full access to their funds would come either maybe tomorrow or Saturday, even if they've already done the exchange and they're just now becoming hydrated. Some people, like the church groups, had access to all their funds. I thought that was cool. But other people as part of the Tier 3 may not have full access for another couple of days. That's just the way it is. We may have the same thing. If we went in for an exchange, it might be an extra day or 2 before we'd get access to the mother lode. We would start and have some immediate cash at the time of our exchange. Remember, we talked about those new $100 bills that we're supposed to have, maybe stacks of 25, packs of 25 of those, so we have $2,500, $5,000, $7,500, or $10,000 we could take as part of our exchange as we walk out of the bank. Only do that if you're comfortable with cash, with that kind of cash, okay? Don't do it if you're not used to that. But you'd have some ready access to the cash. You'd also have some money put on a temporary debit/credit card. And I don't know what the limits would be on that. I've heard that some of the people that have exchanged already have between $1 million and $3.5 million put on their cards at the time of their exchange. So who knows what we would get on the card? It may not be anywhere near that much. Might be just enough to get us by, for a few days. But that's really a very positive sign for us. Also, I think we're looking at something that I can talk about, and that is, I believe you're going to see Wells Fargo working closely and taking over American Express, and you may have an American Express credit card that is a Wells Fargo card, and so we'll see what that looks like and how quickly that comes out. That's another thing that we can keep an eye out for. I don't know, guys, if there's anything else that is relevant. I've heard the rates are continuing to be stable or strong. I've heard the ZIM has been traded slightly higher. I think that everything is just going to be great for us when we go in. I have not heard in the last couple of days whether the redemption centers are fully staffed or partially staffed, but I know that as we get closer and closer to this release, that the memos will go out and they will be back on high alert and active status, ready to go. So I'm excited about the weekend, the possibility of any time between tonight and lunchtime Sunday is a good estimate. Let's just see what happens. There's probably an optimum time that they're looking at, and whenever that release is coming, I'll be ready to put that information out and put it out for you. So let's